Hi everyone, welcome to the first episode of TestMu. I'm Navya and I'll be your host for this. We're almost at the end of the day one and I hope everyone here had a great time. Before we start the session, we would like to thank all our partners for supporting us as we are part of. Coming back to the talk, I'm delighted to introduce you to the speaker for this session. I've had the pleasure to interact with her before. I'm glad I get to introduce her to you guys today. Pricilla is a passionate test engineer currently working with the Billennium IT Services based in Malaysia. She has more than a decade of experience in quality research. She has experience working with different layers of testing, like functional, CPI, CPL, automation, and etc. She is passionate about cloud computing and using AWS services. She strongly advocates for diversity and inclusion, and she is one of the global ambassadors for women testing. She's a storyteller and loves communicating in simple ways. When she's not working, she loves to spend time with her family, watch movies together, and have fun. Today, she's going to talk about going beyond 200 APIs. What is it all about? While testing APIs, the focus is mainly on certain universal standards, and we miss exploring beyond that. But there are many other things to be considered during your API testing. In short, we need to look beyond 200 APIs. So without any further delay, let's hear what Sophia has.
Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing good. And thank you so much for joining us today. This is the first conference by LambdaTest, and I'm really excited, equally excited, I would say, as all of you. And so today's, I'm one of the speaker here. We have a lot of exciting speaker lineup, and I'll be talking about a topic which might be quite interesting to all of you. So let's get started. I hope my screen is also visible for you guys. Great. So how does this topic sound? So beyond 200, okay. I know API testing has been into market for a few years already, and we are all doing our best to test it, right? We're all doing it, all the efficient ways and the intelligent ways of doing it. But are we doing it right way? Are we doing it, or are we testing it enough? So that is what is all going to be about today. So if you see, like it's just a basic introduction about me. You can just call me Priscilla. Okay. I really love to talk about APIs. Maybe I would just say I got this love at first sight with APIs. So, and I'm doing a lot of mentoring sessions, and I used to write a lot of blogs and workshops, especially to educate our testers about APIs. Because once you have the strong basics of API, that really helps you to enhance your testing process. I strongly believe that, and that's how it's just a small introduction about me. I do wear multiple hats, I would say. I am a team leader with Billennium IT Services currently, and in my personal life, like I am a mom of a 5-year-old. You know how that really keeps me busy all the time. And other than that, yeah, there are a few other important roles which I'm just juggling around every day. So for today's session, what you can expect from me, like what Priscilla is going to talk about. So there can be a little bit of a few pointers wherein like which might be interesting for you. So first thing, I know APIs are not new to you, but just a bit of introduction about the API world and a deep dive in the sense like I'll be covering few types of API testing, I would say. Uh, Rather than your normal validation or the functional part of testing what you're doing, I'll just ask you to cover few more types of testing in your routine API testing. That's what I'm just trying to say. So just a few more types of API testing, and then your security aspects, like because when it comes to API testing, we usually worry about your functional aspect, but we'll miss few aspects, right? So one such aspect is your security, and the next one is about your performance. So these two are usually like a neglected one, I would say, a kind of abandoned or orphaned ones, because we're not usually focusing too much of importance to this security and performance testing. And then your API automation repertoire, like it's of course a skill set. You can do it. We all can do it, and we all know that it's very important to do it at this right time of phase, because as much as of importance you give to your front end test cases, your front end automation, your API automation also holds an equal importance. So that's what I'm here to say. And finally, I would love to hear if you have any thoughts, suggestions, or your questions. I'd love to take that as well. So this is all it's going to be for today. Okay. So yeah, APIs, APIs, and APIs. Everywhere it's all APIs, right? So we can even call it as a revolution, right? It's a kind of revolution going on, because everywhere people are talking more about APIs, and suddenly, like, where is this guy coming from? Like everywhere, oh, this can be done by an API call, and this can be integrated via an API. So people are talking more about it, right? So have you ever thought what this is all about, and how much it is important for you as, of course, it is important. As testers, it is very important for all of us. Okay. So I'll just tell a little bit of important points. Okay. So we'll just go through the revolution, how it started, and how is it all right now. Okay. So before getting to our interesting real session, I would say like these are some icebreakers, a kind of a few interesting facts about APIs, which makes you a kind of intriguing facts, I would say. Like still 90% of the developers around the world are using APIs by any means, like somehow to integrate with other applications, or to make some actions happen some other way. They are trying to use APIs, and 91% of organizations had security incidents in 2020. So what is it trying to say? There are a lot of APIs, but there is not of enough security testing is done for your APIs, right? And the next one, open banking is predicted to have 130 million users by 2024. Like if you are totally new to this term open banking, I'll explain you. Open banking is nothing but it's a system, okay, that provides access to all the third party to your financial data, or to your bank, or to your customer data using the APIs. So that's how. So this is a kind of a monetization, like every bank is also doing. So this is one of the important thing which we have to consider about this digital transformation. Okay, that's all about open banking. And the next one is like, of course, more than 93% of developers are still using the REST protocol, because maybe they are very much comfortable. And of course, REST has a lot of advantages, right? We all know that. So maybe because of that, they are still sticking on to that. And the next one is like more than 65% companies realize the importance of digital transformation after this pandemic. Okay, they all realized it, and everybody understood the value and importance of that. Okay, so these are a few interesting facts, and I took this from Nordic API, so that's a source. Okay. So the next one, what is changing, or what has been changed recently? That's what I'm trying to highlight it here. So first, of course, due to this pandemic or post-pandemic also, this remote work culture has really gone to a greater extent, right? Many people started working from their own places and around the globe, like you're collaborating with your team who is sitting across the globe. So because of that, many more applications are being developed day to day to work smoothly because of this remote culture. And that's one of the scenario which I could think of. And the next one, we all know that, of course, we were used to go to the restaurants and sit and eat over there, but right now we all know that because of this binge watching, we usually prefer to sit and eat at home, right? So we used to order the food in that way. Many food delivery apps are also here, and it's not just about food, I know, because we're all ordering your groceries, because it's a kind of how to say, even your medicines, I know many people are ordering their medicine. So everything is like ordered. It's just a place of order in a fraction of a second, and you get it delivered. That's it. And the next one, of course, regarding the payment. Like you don't have to go and stand in the queue to pay your electricity bill or any of your utility bills, right? It can be done in a place where you're sitting in using your mobile or using any of the bank or related applications, and you can do that, right? And even the payment transfers also, while you are working across, and you don't have to be literally paid through a limited medium. There are a lot of mediums where you can get your payments also. So this is these are just few examples. I'm just highlighting it here. So what do you think is happening all? Because of course all these are more relied on this microservices architecture, right? Again, that in turn is all going to use the API calls for every transaction or every action, right? So that's how this API revolution is currently happening. So yeah, I know. So we had some interesting facts about APIs, and we got to know how this API revolution is happening. So now we'll just get into more about the types of API testing. Once you start your API and API testing, we have to consider a few more things, right? So just to remind you all about it. So this is a quote. Of course, it's my own opinion. API testing is no more a luxury; it's a necessity. Why? If your applications are built upon microservices based architecture, right? And you are communicating with APIs by any means, of course, you have to do your API testing, right? It means like you have to drift it. Of course, I know there are a lot of controversies going about this shift left and shift right. I would always say, like, try to balance it, right? That's how we call it as shift left as early as possible. But it doesn't mean that shift left or shift right is totally incorrect. Okay. It depends upon the projects, it depends upon the architecture, how the tech stack is overbuilt, right? But whenever you have your microservices involved, please make sure to have your API testing in place. That's what I would say. And the next point you have to consider is you're building your strategy. What is a strategy? Just forget about being a tester and just come out of that and just think what's the strategy, because we usually use this terminology in more places or many places, saying like this is a strategy. Maybe even for the tennis players and some of the football matches also, we used to say this word, right, a strategy. But what is that strategy? Have you ever thought about it? Right, have you ever thought about it? Yes, because strategy is nothing but how you are going to play that, right? How you're going to play that game. So the same way, how you are actually going to test that, how you're actually going to test your APIs. So that is what we call it as your strategy. So what you are actually going to test, how you are going to test. So everything you have to define, right? So try to have your world-class strategy, I would say. So, but before getting to know that strategy, you should know what you have to actually test, right? You should have a basic understanding about your types of API testing. Only then you can choose like this is my priority and this is not my priority, right? So that's how the next topic is coming here. Types of API testing, right? I know we have around 8 types of testing, which I want you folks to remember. But I came up with an interesting coffee machine analogy. Okay, maybe you can just try to think about it whenever you're trying to recall these types of API testing. Okay, so the first one, we will start with the validation testing. Okay, think about a coffee machine which is in your office. Okay, it was placed newly, and you are going to get your coffee. Okay, maybe latte is your favorite, so you're just going to get a latte and just come back. So you're not worried about too many things. Okay, so immediately after the installation of that coffee machine, you're going to check whether it's able to deliver a single type of coffee, right? So this is how the validation testing works. So it's just a basic check at the happy path immediately after the development of the APIs. Okay, so just remember that's how you do your validation test. And the second one is about the functional test. So usually, then again, yeah, we'll go back to the coffee machine. Now you have multiple options, so you wanted to try everything. Okay, you wanted to try whether you're going to get an espresso, your cappuccino, everything. So you're just going to try to explore, okay, many flows. Maybe you can even call it as an extended positive flow. Okay, and also along with that negative flow, some more deeper negative testing, and you just basically you're trying to test your component as API as a component and the scenarios of that. it is really quite interesting, right? So that's how you do your functional testing of your APIs. And the third one is like integration testing. So now your coffee machine doesn't have an internal option to provide or to make milk and mix it for your coffee. Okay, it's all black coffee. But when you want to have a milk based coffee, you have an external pipe, okay, where you have to connect that to a milk outlet and inlet, and from that it's picked up and you're going to get your coffee. Okay, so wherein you're going to integrate it with the multiple API or multiple endpoints of the APIs. So this is your third important type of testing which you have to remember. And the next one, of course, security. That coffee machine is placed in a common area. Okay, it means like other employees will also have access to that. Other employees, in the sense, other employees of other employers will also have access to that. So how does this think about it crazily? So just think your that coffee machine has a kind of authentication, right? You maybe have to just show up your access card and it just works based on that. So it's a kind of security. So wherein your authenticity or authorization is done, right? So that's a kind of security testing, wherein you're going to verify basic authorization, authentication part of your APIs. And the next one, performance. Okay, so the same coffee machine is in now placed in a town hall, maybe a kind of because that cafeteria, your office guy, folks are having your town hall meeting, wherein like you're expecting around 200, 300 people to join that day. Okay, but the usual crowd is around 50. But that day you're expecting more than 200. Okay, so what it'll happen? What it should happen? Of course, the coffee machine should work the same way how it was working, right? So based on the different loads, you're going to test your APIs and how it's going to react it. So that's how performance testing is done. And the next one is like reliability testing. So now you really like that coffee machine because that is in your office for more than a year and you really wanted to um, suggest or recommend this coffee machine to another friend. So you would really like it because it was reliable. All the days it was working fine. It was able to grind the coffee seeds nicely. So you guys are really like the coffee machine, right? So that's how reliable your APIs are. So that kind of testing, we call it as in reliability testing. Okay. And the next one is API documentation. So this coffee machine, right? Once they installed, the vendor should have given you a kind of manual book. If you have any doubts, maybe you can just go and refer this manual book and it should actually work the way expected. The book and the coffee machine behavior is expected to match, right? So now you have a manual book and your coffee machine. Both should behave in the same way. The same way, you should have an API documentation and you should have your real APIs. So this documentation, the capabilities, the behavior of the APIs mentioned here should match with the actual behavior of your APIs. If it is not matching, you're going to log a defect. Either it has to be a documentation or update, or it's going to be an enhancement in your APIs. So that's how this API documentation testing is done. Regression testing, that is very simple. It is of course it is very similar or there's a resemblance to your normal regression testing. So now this coffee machine had faced some errors. Okay, it's a reliable coffee machine. It was working all fine all these years, and suddenly, yeah, that guy also has his threshold, right? So maybe he's very tired one day, so he just stopped working. So what happened? You're going to call that vendor. He's there or she's there. You're going to fix it, and once you fix your coffee machine, you're going to rush back and you're going to check whether you're able to get your favorite coffee, right? So that is your regression testing. So after the defect fix, you just need to ensure if your APIs are behaving in an expected way, right? So these are the 8 different types of API testing, which you have to remember next time before building your API test strategy. Okay, I believe you guys will remember it nicely. So the next interesting topic is like API security. I know because we saw different types of testing, but among that, I'm going to focus or emphasize more about API security and API performance. Okay, so we all know this because we all think in a way like someone will test it, right? Who is that someone? There is no someone. And when it comes to the security, no, you really can't take a toss here, right? So we should think it security is not everyone's responsibility. Security is everyone's responsibility. Okay. So we shouldn't think that it's someone's responsibility. It's everyone's responsibility. That's how API security works. So this is one of the code which was explicitly told by OWASP, right? If you guys haven't heard about OWASP, no worries. OWASP, we call it as Open Web Application Security Project. Okay, it's a trusted non-profit organization. Okay, and they usually publish a lot of details and documentations about uh, security of the web applications. So that's how they do. And this is one of their favorite or famous quote, I would say. Confirmation of user's identity, authentication, and session management is critical to protect against authentication related attacks. Right. So overall, what I'm trying to emphasize here is like you need to give importance for your security, for your APIs, of course. So this is what is all going to be. And the top 10 vulnerabilities by API. So we just spoke about OWASP, right? Usually OWASP releases the list of vulnerabilities, okay, what the web applications are going to face. And in 2019, they released an API security vulnerability list. Okay, because we know as the loads are increasing. Because if you guys remember in the first slide, we were seeing some stats, right, wherein I mentioned like there were a lot of security incidents in 2020. It means like the usage of the increase in usage, right? The increase in usage is again making more and more vulnerable, right? So now let's see the top 10 API security vulnerability list, because getting to know about these vulnerabilities is the first step towards improving the security of your APIs. Okay, because you know, right, awareness is better than cure, I would say. So you should first have the knowledge of all these vulnerabilities, and only then you can actually uh, have that perspective while you're testing, and you can really give your good feedback to your developers and other stakeholders, right? So we'll start with the first one, broken object level authorization. So what is it trying to say is like, this is an object, like I'm just trying to explain it in a very kind of layman terms, I would say. Just think you are a user. Okay. As a user, Priscilla should be able to access only Priscilla's record, right? Just by editing my employee ID like 111, instead of that, if I'm just updating my parameter into 112, and if I'm still getting the results, it means like I'm accessing an object which I'm not supposed to do, right? So this is so some kind of authorization is broken over there. So this is what we call it as like broken object level authorization. And the second one is like broken user authentication. Okay. What is broken user authentication is like, you guys might remember, usually this is happening more towards your sign in flow, forgot password flows and all those things. Sometimes I know most of our APIs are, you might have played around through the security tokens and all those things. And we know that these security tokens are short lived, like 20 minutes or less than 20 minutes, or some are like even 2-3 minutes also, like very short lived also, based on the criticality of the applications. So that short-lived tokens should really short-live. That's it. So if you are able to access your application or your APIs through the expired token or the expired password or the incorrect password, then we call that as a broken user authentication. Okay. So obviously then there is something broken, and you have to really take care of your security aspect over there. And the next one is like excessive data exposure. So what is this excessive data exposure? It's nothing but we always say, because there is, I always usually keep that in mind. Any unwanted data, when you tell to someone, it's a kind of data leakage, right? It's a data theft. So what is wanted should only be conveyed at that time and to the intended audience, right? So in that way, your response body Okay, for simple cases, just by returning a welcome message, your response will give a very big response, including all the sensitive details of that user or some records, right? So that is what we call it as an excessive data exposure, wherein like your sensitive data is exposed unnecessarily in the response body. Okay, so that's what we call it as excessive data exposure vulnerability. And the next one is like lack of resources and rate limiting. We know when we search in Google, Google is actually splitting all your search result in page to page, right? Page one, page two, page three. You have to go that. So that's what we call it as pagination. So the same way, while you're actually trying to retrieve something from your server, it should actually limit you. Not in a single go, it should give you all the 200, 300 records. That's not possible because in that way, if you're able to retrieve n number of records, n number in the sense I'm talking about multiple, like more than 2 or 3 digits, and wherein you can also post multiple number of records in a single shot, I'm saying, there is a possibility where your server could get crashed. It can lead to lot of memory and CPU usage as well. So your limits should be restricted using your limit count. There are many strategies developers are using. So it's always good to resource limiting is preferred here. Okay. And the next one, we call it as a broken function level authorization, wherein like here and normal users are given some privileged access. Okay, so as a normal user, say just think about Salesforce, I'm just a normal employee over there, and I shouldn't have an admin account. If I'm provided admin account as well with my same user credentials, whatever I'm using for my normal account, will that work? So normal user is getting access to a privileged account that will lead to a lot of mess and chaos. So that is what we call it as broken function level authorization. And the next one, mass assignment. What is this mass assignment? Mass assignment is nothing but whether in your post request, while you're passing your request or body or the payload, you can actually pass some additional tags also, the request body. Okay. So this means like obviously the hackers can easily intercept the request and they can actually reverse engineer this private API. So even though it's private, they can actually reverse engineer that, right? So make sure that you're not passing additional tags which is not treated. And if it is happening that way, your API shouldn't return a proper response. It should fail. That's why. And the next one, the seventh one, we call it as security misconfiguration. Okay, this is nothing but where your secured or sensitive data is actually stored without encryption. That's an example which I could tell. And because just think about there is an error message where it's just telling you, hey, this is not an invalid body or invalid request, something. That error message is returning your social security number or any of your security or any of your bank details. Is that a valid thing? No, right? So make sure that the error messages are not returning any sensitive information from those API response. So that is how we have to worry about this security misconfiguration. And the next one is like injection, wherein like you're going to feed your API. You might have heard about SQL and NoSQL injection and all those things. So wherein like explicitly you're going to feed your API with some malicious data. This really might help the hackers to erase a lot of data into the system. So just make sure that this kind of injection is being actually stopped. And the next one, the ninth one, is like improper assets management, wherein like I know because this is a very common vulnerability, I would say, because based on the features and enhancement, we'll be actually versioning all our APIs, right? Version. We might have started from 0.1 and finally right now we might be in 8 or 9 even though. But are you making sure that this unused old version of APIs are actually retired? Because if you have any open security bugs in your previous versions of APIs, that of course that leaves a hacker to enter to your system, right? So make sure that you're always retiring your old unused version of your APIs. So only the actual live version should be accessible to everyone or to the intended users. Okay, that comes under improper assets management. And the next one is like insufficient logging and monitoring. Of course, we all know uh, this is one of the important but mostly neglected topic, I would say. Please ensure that you're logging all your API calls, okay, and you're also monitoring your APIs so that you can actually analyze the trend, okay, and also alerting. Like once if you see something fishy or suspicious, that you have to be alerted, and even that part while alerting also make sure that all the intended audience are covered. Okay, so that's how I think this is the end of this top 10 vulnerabilities. Okay, so make sure next time while you're testing your APIs, make sure that if they are falling under any of these vulnerable categories. So then you can actually go and talk with your developers or other stakeholders. I'm not telling that all these vulnerabilities are something wherein like QA can step up and do something. Okay, so the first step towards this improvising your security is like acquiring knowledge, right? Acquiring knowledge is the first step what you can do it here. So that's what I'm suggesting you to learn it here. And the next slide. Okay, so now we'll just in detail. So now we already saw about what are the vulnerabilities of your APIs. But as a tester, what you can do, you can actually try to add the security vulnerability as whatever we saw that, right? Based on that, you can try to write your assertions and include security testing as part of your API testing routine process. You don't need to be an expert. Okay, you don't need to be an expert, and there are a lot of materials available outside, and definitely you can do that. So make sure to add basic security testing test cases to validate based on the vulnerabilities. Of course, you need to have that knowledge and include that in your routine API testing process. And pay attention to these error codes. Why I'm saying this, like the error codes and error messages are one of the important factor wherein like many important security related information are being leaked. So make sure that your error messages are valid, okay, to the scenario whatever happening. If it is failing, if it is really 401, it should be 401. Okay, because there's a lot of difference between unauthorized and forbidden, right? So based on that, you should have a detailed knowledge about your error codes especially, right? And only then you can actually go ahead and speak with your developers based on that. There is something called role based scenarios, right? Whatever, if you guys remember, we were talking about some admin privileges being provided to the normal users. So make sure that if you have any role based scenarios, please prioritize that, because that is one important area where the security leak related attacks can happen. And the next one is like, of course, whether the proper authentication or authorization methods are being followed, and you're writing your assertions and test cases to validate that as well. And of course, continuous monitoring. Yeah, once even while you're testing or even after your testing is done, until it is moved on to production, make sure that you're setting up some kind of monitors to your APIs so that it will help you to prevent some security attacks, because most of the security attacks are being going unnoticed for months and months because you're not monitoring that API. So make sure that you're setting up your monitors and the basic knowledge about all the vulnerabilities about the webs and whatever for API especially they have mentioned, like OWASP has mentioned. Please try to go through that as well. And of course, it's a continuous process. It's not just a day one or day two process. It's a continuous process. Okay, so we will move on to the next one. So some more bonus tips to secure your APIs, which you guys can remember. Data encryption, which is a very important factor. It's not just about data should be encrypted while traveling. Okay, data should be encrypted while resting as well. All your data. And make sure that you are implementing or the developers have implemented some digital signatures and certificates and they are working as expected. Conduct your legal audits in an expected frequency. That really helps to find some flaws which was being unnoticed for months and months. And yeah, if you guys remember, just make sure that you're retiring your unused or old version of APIs. Okay. And yeah, so this is just an interesting incident which happened in 2020, the Twitter hack, which is one of the worst thing happened in history as well, I would say. Like they were targeting all the high profile Twitter accounts, right? Starting from Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, more and more people, Bill Gates and all those people for this cryptocurrency scam. But how it started, this is one of the attack, which we call it in security testing is like social engineering attack, wherein like internal people and Twitter is being compromised by a way, and some of the admin account related things were being leaked, and the hackers were able to get into the system. So this is just one incident, and it's an interesting hack as well. You can try to go and read it about more about in wiki. Okay, and the next topic is like API performance. We all know because who likes a slow performing application, right? We all are application to be loaded faster in a fraction of a second. It has to be, it has to respond to me, and because we believe that we are in a fast paced world and everything around us should be very faster, right? In that way, performance testing is also being neglected, especially for your APIs. If you're doing it earlier days, please make sure that you're paying some attention, at least in future, when it comes to API performance. Okay. So this is a Google outage because we all rely on Google for most of our daily day-to-day activities. And how does it feel like when you see this kind of error message when Google is telling, right? It really hurts, right? And no one wants to see that error message also because we don't like to see that 500 series error message because we need our system to be up and running anytime and every time, right? I know that's literally impossible, but there can be some outages or some planned outages which is accepted by some customers. But why this is usually happening is like we are not paying enough attention to the performance. That's the reason. So this is a quote which has got my attention about performance testing. The rabbit runs faster than the fox because the rabbit is running for his life and the fox is running only for his dinner, right? That sounds. Can you just relate what is the relationship between this quote and performance testing? Yes. What is your goal, right? If you're running towards your goal, definitely you can perform faster, right? The goals are different. So your goal is what is what going to improve or enhance your performance, I would say. So just keep this in mind. So why do we need performance testing? Obviously, your APIs, the performance of your APIs are going to decide the overall application performance. So obviously, your APIs has to be very faster. It has to be very speeder. And three important factors which you have to remember: stability, scalability, and the speeds. Like three, yes, you can just remember that. So these three are very important factors when it comes to the performance testing of your APIs. Finally, of course, you need your customers, right? You can't lose your customers in a fraction of a second, right? It's really tough to get one. So to make your customers happy and also to you and also for you to stay in market, you really need to do your performance testing. Okay, and usually how do we perform or how do we measure the API performance? There are a few factors which we need to consider. The response time, make sure that it is under or below the expected level as always, and how much time your APIs are up and running. Okay, and what is the request per minute your APIs or your server could handle. Okay, and what is the latency of your request, and what are the errors usually being returned. So when you're trying to understand more about these factors and metrics, right, obviously you will start paying more attention to your API's performance as well. So you can easily incorporate these things or these metrics into your test cases, and you can monitor whether your APIs are up to your performance expectations or not. Okay. And the next one. Of course. It's I know it's native in R, like API test automation. We are all so much looking forward to this topic, right? So I'm not going to cover anything technical here because I don't have any framework or tool which I'm going to do a demo it right now, but just few factors or some basic awareness wherein which helps you to do your API automation better. So how to, this is the process which I'm trying to explain. Okay. So first you should play around all the endpoints of your APIs. Okay. And that really helps you to categorize like this is about this and this is about that. So just that is the first point. Try identify all the endpoints, the capabilities of your APIs and try to play around that. Okay. And the next thing will be like you have to use some parameters and the chaining of the requests so that they can communicate between one another. Like instead of testing as a standalone endpoints, you can actually make that as a scenario or a flow, and then you can actually test it inside that. That's the reason. And try to cover all the types of testing we saw before, right? Because we were discussing this coffee machine analogy for all the 8 different types. So just try to think about that and try to cover as much as possible types of testing. And then the next one is about your end-to-end test suite. Make sure that you're building your complete flow. If you have multiple system APIs, make sure that you're incorporating all the endpoints, they are communicating between them using the parameters, and you're chaining the request, and you're building an end-to-end test suite. Okay. And then, of course, you can integrate with your existing CI/CD pipelines because that really saves a lot of your time and that really helps a lot of people to execute when and where they want as well. And you can run those required tests in a frequency which helps you to understand. Of course, this I know this part is quite similar to your front end automation. Okay, it is most similar to your front end automation. So just try to report the deviation when and where it's needed. So this is a simple process which helps you to improve or improve your automation skills for API. So what are the merits, the advantages of API automation? We all know this helps you to build the efficient APIs. You can actually create the high quality APIs and the cost minimalization. Why cost minimalization? Because you are doing it in an early stage because in most of the cases your front end might not be even ready, but you can actually find many potential bugs regarding your business flow, critical business flows. So that really helps to save a lot of cost. And the increased coverage, we all know that you can so now you know, right? It's not just about your functionality of your APIs. You can actually cover many functional security, performance, integration, and the regression-based aspects also, along with your API automation. And then when it comes to the once you have your test suite, it actually helps the other stakeholders also to run it whenever they need it, right? The developers can also do, and this really helps to save a lot of other stakeholders' time as well. And of course, I know manual effort cannot be replaced totally by the automation effort, but to some extent, this really helps you to avoid some kind of eyeballing and some kind of manual work, I would say. And it's easy to maintain, of course. Like once you have your well-built regression suite or end-to-end automation test suite, it's really easy to maintain when compared to the front-end changes because the changes are very minimal because the core level changes are not going to change, right? Unless and until you find some critical business flow or some security leak or some data related leak defect, the flow or the API endpoints are not going to change. So obviously there is not going to be a lot of changes around this API testing scenarios. That's the reason I'm telling that it's easy to maintain. Okay. And you can of course integrate with your CI/CD. That's very simple, and you can get your test results in fraction of a second. Okay. So we are nearing the closure. So I'll just give a recap what we did or what we spoke about today. So APIs are the new normal. We all know that it's happening and it's everywhere. So make sure to gain your knowledge around that. Okay, and especially when your systems are going to interact with APIs by some means, definitely you should have some knowledge about APIs and about types of API testing as well. It's not just about functional and validation. There are a lot more beyond that as well. So that's of course the beauty of this topic beyond 200. Okay, you have to focus more towards your error codes, right? And watch out for the vulnerabilities. Like mostly every year, OWASP will be releasing their vulnerabilities with web applications. You can just watch out and try to understand what are the security threats and vulnerabilities out there for your APIs as well. And good APIs are the high performing, are really building the high performing applications as well. So make sure that your APIs are really performing to a greater extent. And it's a holistic process, I would say. Yeah, API automation is a holistic process. So try to invest some time over there. And once you build your suite, it's definitely going to be a cakewalk. Okay. And I think I am. I have just reached the final slides. And if you guys have any questions, you can just ask me. I would really love to take them all. And I believe you guys really enjoyed the session. So if you have any more questions or if you wanted to connect with me regarding any of your questions regarding APIs, also just feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn as well. And I think that's all. And thank you so much, LambdaTest, for providing me this opportunity. You guys are really doing a good job and keep doing that. And I'm looking forward to the other talks of the other speakers as well. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, that thank you, Priscilla, for that wonderful talk. It really was insightful. And hopefully, my audio is clear now. I just wanted to make sure. Yeah, great. So we have a couple of questions. If you would like to take them, so we can go ahead and right get into it. Let me see the first question. So, does cloud infrastructure influence the API performance and security issues?
Mm,
Your thoughts?
Yeah, of course, to a greater extent. And yeah, thank you so much, guys, for being staying here, staying up. And I believe that you guys might have got some basic insights. So yeah, to this question, of course it has, because you are in this case you're going to use the inbuilt security, the performance provided by the cloud-based platforms, right? Definitely that is going to have uh, a bit of impact, I would say. But I believe every cloud provider is also enhancing their security based thing. So I remember seeing one more question also related to what kind of authorization. So just remember, when it comes to the API security things, there is no ground rule like this kind of authorization is going to be the better one. So what you have to do is like sit and analyze how, what sort of project is that? Are you planning to monetize your project? In that case, what will be the easiest way for the other third party users to integrate your APIs? If not, it is going to be completely private and internal for your internal purposes, and you're not planning to host it to the outside vendors, then you can go for a strict validation or a kind of medium level validation. So this kind of authorization method and the type totally depends upon the project and the sensitive data, like what sort of data you're going to carry, whether it is going to be too much of private data or it can be a kind of data where it can be used for marketing purposes. So these sort of factors are helping you to decide what sort of authorization which we have to use. And of course, the cloud infrastructure in the current world, they have some impact to this performance and security issue, but it can be improvised. It can be improvised.
Great. So the next question is: I test standard APIs and custom comms APIs. Do you recommend the same API testing techniques for both?
Definitely no, because as I mentioned before, every API and the purpose of API is totally different, right? So based on that, you have to analyze like what is the priority for this API, whether the performance or the security or the integration part, whether you are trying to, whether your application is going to have multiple third-party integration. So based on these weightages, you can categorize your test cases, and the weightage has been split upon all those things.
Okay, I think we can take one more session, and that is it.
Mm,
We can probably look into all those questions and answer later, and
sure.
put it on the blog. But we can
Mm.
definitely take one more last question. So, what is the effect of AI and ML to ensure security threats in API?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Of course, it has a lot of impact. What we can start doing is like, since we already know what are the list of vulnerabilities, security threats for your APIs, right? You can start building your models based on that. Of course, many organizations are doing that. Uh, but we all know that it comes up with a kind of challenges as well, right? It's pretty costly. The cost is also very high. So, but what you can do is like you can try to educate your models, and you can try to feed the data, because what are the major challenges? What we see here is like. When you feed in a lot of security data, because there is going to be a leakage as well, because your data and AI models need a lot of data to decide upon the decision, right? So in that case, there might be some security leakage also happening. So that's the kind of disadvantage I see it here, because you're already building your AI model for a security threat, and even for building that, you're going to provide a lot of data. But I believe there are many more good practices coming in this aspect. I would say you can maybe we can just watch out for more for now. That's what I can say.
A lot of security questions there, but yeah, good, I guess. But yeah, thank you. I think that's all the questions we can take today, guys. But we will definitely answer all your questions, and we'll put it on a blog. Priscilla will be happy to answer that for you guys.
Thank
Thank
you.
you again, Priscilla, for joining the session. I know it's quite early for you there. Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, guys. The session recording will be available on AirMeet till 25th, and you can catch this session on our YouTube channel as well later. Thanks. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Bye
Thank you.
bye.
Bye.